I forgot our intro.
Welcome to another episode
Thank you.
of Unsung
Jesus.
Horror.
Wow. Hello, it's been a while.
Prepare yourself for the terror. The prison of madness, where few enter and none return.
Welcome to Unsung Horrors. With Lance. And Erica.
Leave all your sanity behind. It can't help you now.
Welcome to another episode of Unsung Horrors, the podcast where we discuss underseen horror movies, specifically those which have fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. I'm Erica.
I'm Lance.
And before we get into our first episode of Giallo January, I did want to take a few minutes to pimp us, if you will. For those of you who don't follow on social media, if you're just a maybe passive listener, I did want to just highlight some special features to Blu-ray releases that Lance and I have contributed to. So most recently, Vinegar Syndrome released The Horrible Dr. Hitchcock. And I have a booklet essay in there called Are Those Maggots in Your Eyes or Are You Just Happy to See Me? Necrophilia and Italian Horror films. I love that title. That's so good. They also announced a double feature release of Black Cat 1 and 2, the Hong Kong films. And I also have a booklet in there, and that's all about La Femme Nikita knockoffs. Error 4444 announced last year that they would be releasing Run and Kill, and that should be shipping this month, January. That is still available for pre-order. I can't believe it has not sold out yet. You people, get on that.
Yeah.
I have a video essay on that release that's all about kids getting wrecked.
Oh, I wonder why they selected you to do that.
They didn't select. I went to Sam and I was like, excuse me, hi, I need to be on this here.
Well, it was a very wise decision.
Thank you. One other release from last year from Vinegar Syndrome was Magic Crystal. That's an Indiana Jones Hong Kong knockoff. I have a booklet essay in there. And then from Severin, one of the films that we've covered, Spider Labyrinth.
Yes.
Finally got a release. In 4K, no less.
I can't believe all the 4K releases that are coming out. Like some of the selections are mind-boggling.
It's amazing.
I love it.
So for Spider Labyrinth, I co-wrote and narrated a video essay for that release. Ryan from Disconnected did the editing, and Will Dodson got the interviews for that. That essay is actually nominated for a Shelf Shock Rewind Award, as is the booklet essay that I wrote for El Bosque de Lobo, which is in Vinegar Syndrome's Villages of the Damned box set of 3 Spanish horror films, which I think if it's not sold out by the time this episode comes out, it was down to like 100 and something units. So the Shelf Shock Rewind Awards are physical media awards, and they're basically best release of the year. They focus a lot on special features, Region A, Region B releases, box sets, all that. We'll have a link to that in show notes for you to go check out the ballot for that. I am not saying this so you vote for me.
You guys should, though. I mean, the visual essays, like the villages.
I am not Tracy Flick. Please stop.
Well, I think it's open till the end of the month, January 31st of 2024. So, yeah, get your vote in, whatever you decide to vote
Please actually evaluate the things that are nominated. Don't just, pick names.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's options to enter in your other, ideas for visual essays that may not even be listed.
Yeah,
but,
there's write-in options, and the cool thing too is like a bunch of our guests have been nominated too. Bill Ackerman, Amanda Reyes, Sam Deegan, all are on that ballot, as well they should be. We also have an upcoming special guest who is also nominated, but more on that after Lance's Giallo January pick. 2 other quick things. Upcoming, I have a co-commentary track for a film that has been mentioned on the show, not covered, just mentioned. A handful of booklet and video essays, but more importantly than anything, Lance and I got to do a video essay together.
Yeah.
For a film that we have covered on this podcast.
Yes.
And I cannot wait for us to be able to talk about it.
Me neither. I mean, obviously, it's my first contribution to any type of special feature, so I'm really excited.
But not your last.
Not my last.
You also have a project coming up too, which is really exciting. And you can't say too much about it yet.
I can't say much about it. I can say that it does involve maybe another movie we've talked about. But yeah, that would be not this year. It's just a project in the works. But that if it happens, I am so excited about this one. So yeah,
we're doing lots of stuff. We're keeping busy, folks. We didn't just take 2 months off or a month off for nothing.
Yeah. And this is officially our Happy New Year episode, really.
It is.
I mean, it's not the first of 2024, but we recorded that back in November. So
yeah,
happy 2024. This year's going to be great for everybody.
Yes, because 2023 can eat all of the dicks.
It can.
I had a really rough year.
I had a pretty bad year too. Yeah. But this podcast and
this shining light in the shit year that was 2023 for me. So
same. It is. It kept me going.
I missed you, Lance.
I missed you too. I feel like I haven't seen you in 2 months.
That's what it's been.
It's crazy.
All right, enough with the sentimentalities here. Let's get into some Giallo nonsense, and that is The Skin Under the Claws from 1975. We do have a YouTube link in show notes where you can watch the film. Fair warning, the copy is horrendous, and that was a big reason of why I apologize for picking it. I was like, look, the copy
that's the reason.
That's a big reason, but also the movie is. I'm gonna make a case for it. In fact, not so much my case, but Roberto Curti is gonna help me make my case for this film because I know I saw some ratings from people perfectly justified. I get it, but I feel like if there is a restored, and I don't just mean like copy wise, I mean get those deleted scenes in there because there's quite a few.
There's got to be.
There are, and I have a breakdown of some of them, courtesy of Roberto Curti. He has saved this episode to make it an actual interesting one where I have stuff to say.
I'm excited to hear those because this is some choppy, disjointed stuff, which you love, and
I still appreciate it.
You get frustrated with.
Even without Roberto Curti, I would still have plenty of nice things to say about this movie.
Yeah, I do too.
But I feel like the rewatch for me. The first time I watched it, I was like 3.5. This is ridiculous. This is great. Whatever. I don't care. 3.5. And then I rewatched it and I was like, yeah, actually 3 stars. And even that I feel is probably a little bit generous. But if restoration ever does see the light of day, one of our listeners, Dakota Newt, had mentioned this would fit perfectly in with Vinegar Syndrome's Forgotten Jolly sets. 100% agree with that. Assuming that we can get those deleted scenes because there are some interesting ones.
Nice.
So as of this recording, The Skin Under the Claws has 130 views on Letterboxd. We do always warn folks that we spoil films, but especially when it comes to Jolly, just be warned, we're going to spoil it. I'm going to spoil it right here in the summary. So if you haven't watched it yet, make sure you're watching it at night with all the lights off because it'll be easier to see.
That's true. If you have any type of reflection from anything, you're fucked.
So Roberto Curti's Italian Gothic horror films, he's got a series of these, but I'm specifically referring to his 1970 to 1979 version. It lays it all out perfectly. I read it and I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. I'm sure you'll answer all the questions I have.
Probably.
Okay.
The Letterboxd summary, please don't pay attention to that one because there's some incorrect information in there, including it's saying a mad doctor experiments with ways to cheat death and confuse his pursuers with the help of a corpse identical DNA to his own. Incorrect. So we're going to
that's on Letterboxd?
That's on Letterboxd. It's not the whole thing. It's one sentence of the synopsis in there. But we're going to read Roberto Curti's La Pelle sotto gli artigli. I can't pronounce it correctly.
Oh, that's good.
Let me put on my Lance voice for reading here.
La Pella de Harte.
No, I meant like your smooth talking voice. Rome, a mysterious man who has dug up a dead body in a cemetery, savagely murders a prostitute. The police find traces of decomposed human flesh under the victim's fingernails. Soon another murder follows, and the victim is found hacked to pieces in a suitcase. Meanwhile, a tender romance blossoms between Dr. Gianni Danni and his colleague Sylvia Pieri. Both work at a private clinic run by the friendly Dr. Helmet, who claims he has perfected a method to preserve body parts and increase life expectancy. The investigations are conducted by Commissioner Rinaldi, who suspects Danny of being the mysterious murderer. Following Helmut's sudden death and the mysterious disappearance of the professor's body, Sylvia is abducted. The culprit, and this is where we get into spoilers, folks. The culprit turns out to be Helmut, who faked his own death in order to carry out his experiments with reanimation, with techniques borrowed from the Nazis. His aim is to make a living body have intercourse with a dead one and breed a new living organism. And the chosen victim is Sylvia. The police stop Helmut just in time, but Sylvia is still under the influence of the mad doctor's will. So half that movie is missing.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll get into my thoughts initially about the whole Nazi angle, because I was like, I know it's there.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about Berlin. He's talking about experiments. Like, I know it's there.
And his wife was killed from a bombing.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. And I'm going to be coming back to Cody's book quite a bit in this episode, because he really did save me, because I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, there was some murky elements for sure.
Yeah. Let's get into the cast and crew before we get into too far into the film. So this was written and directed by Alessandro Santini. He had a very limited career and even less information that I could find about him. He directed 4 total films between 1972 and 1979, one of those being Beyond the Frontiers of Hate from 1972, which I'm just going to say it's literally one of the worst spaghetti westerns I've ever watched.
Oh, yeah. I saw some of the character names you listed.
Oh, yeah. It's like Chief Running Hot and Cold Water and Chief Natural Gas or something like that.
Was it a comedy? Is it like a spoof?
No.
Yeah,
it's fucking awful. Like, the main characters that we're, I guess, supposed to care about, completely undeveloped. I was like, I'm so bored and I don't care. And this movie, even for its time, is just unforgivably racist.
Yeah.
And honestly, Cody's review of this film is not very forgiving. Like, Santini, he's not great at what he's doing. And it's evidenced by the 2 films I've seen from him. I have zero desire to seek out anything else that he's done.
Yeah.
On top of that, he was actually arrested in 1972. And not for anything weird and gross, don't worry. But it's still kind of icky as far as like what he was doing, because it was more of like a fraud case that involved a bunch of other Italian people in the film industry. So, and again, this is also in Cody's book. About Santini, Cody said, quote, Santini remains one of Italian cinema's most obscure and overlooked figures. His real place within Italian popular cinema can perhaps be somewhat clarified by the news article dated early 1977 about the upcoming trial against the members of a couple of phony production companies, Cinema TV 2000 and Globar Film. So, according to this article, hundreds of persons were deceived by a group of skilled criminals who used to perfection the insidious weapon of the mirage of fabulous earnings in the world of movies, television, and photonovellas. The plan that had taken shape in August of 1971 in various Italian cities through newspaper ads, posters on buses, and so on. The ads announced job offers for movie extras in, quote, important Italian-American productions, often related to spaghetti western. The swindlers were setting up phony auditions and asked money from their victims to cover the expenses. During the screen tests, the camera rolled with no film inside. Those who protested were sometimes sent to the sets of some down-to-heel productions as extras in order to divert suspicion. That the swindlers managed to cheat about 500 individuals is telling about the fascination that cinema still exerted on many Italians. So it goes on to say, the head of the organizations was Gaetano Ferri, who together with Oddone Furia presented himself as the head of the production company. Among the 11 accused, there was Alessandro Santini as the director. Ferri, Furia, Santini, and a couple others were arrested in February 1972 and released soon afterwards. The trial took place 5 years later. So the trial ended with 3 convicted. That was Ferri, Mancini, and Furia, and the others, including Santini, were acquitted. What's interesting here, and there's like a bunch of other paragraphs about it, but Renato Polselli is involved in this too.
Really?
Like some of the stuff that was shot during this whole fiasco, he was involved with it too. So if you're interested, Roberto Curti, you can't go wrong with his writings. So you can read more about like the case and
Yeah, that's really intriguing
his
stuff.
connection to that too. So Santini, not a great person.
Yeah, he didn't. Like you said, he has limited credits. I watched something that he co-wrote called The Seventh Gate from 1965. Mm-hmm. And that was my first watch of the year. And I was definitely in the mood because I was kind of over the holidays and watched a bunch of Christmas movies.
Yeah.
That kind of very low ratings on Letterboxd, which I totally get. But it's like the classic 18th century kind of gothic set reading of a will in a secluded mansion with these estranged relatives. And they're all kind of out to murder each other for the fortune.
Yeah.
Nothing really special, but I was just so kind of hooked in the strange dialogue that Santini contributed to, that he co-wrote. But yeah, one I wouldn't recommend, but one that I loved. But what's funny too is like 90% of the cast and the crew, Santini included, have very, very little film or television credits.
Yeah.
Like some of them, the only thing they're associated with was with The Seventh Gate. But I guess this was early, so it's not like they were trying to... but yeah, that's very interesting stuff on Alessandro Santini.
Yeah. All right. Getting into some of the other crew, score, what was not, taken from a library, was by Francesco Santucci. He's listed as a composer for 8 total films. Cinematography, or at least, what we could see from the copy that we watched, is by Luigi De Maria, who has 7 credits. Before we get into the cast, I did have a couple of quick production notes. Again, these were from Roberto Curti, so thank you, sir. So this film was allegedly shot at Gordon Mitchell's Cave Studio film, which was the cheapest in Rome. And it's really easy to tell that because, when Gordon Mitchell is like in a room with the other two talking over a dead body, it's like plain white walls. The police station is like just singular rooms, like with a thing behind them. So, there's not a lot of production value in this film. There is some information about the film's release and what it went through with the censorship board in Italy. It had no small trouble with the Italian Board of Censors. On first instance in 1974, it was denied the visa, the board's motivation being that, quote, "It is a continuous display of shameless female nudity in a context of conscious and absurd sadism, which offends any sense of modesty," unquote. Awesome.
Accurate, but no.
On appeal, the commission demanded that the scene where the second victim strips naked before her killer be sensibly cut and consequently gave the film a VM-18 rating. It was released theatrically in spring 1975 and soon disappeared into oblivion. And Gordon Mitchell actually told a story about filming, specifically the scene at the very end where he's chasing Sylvia and she's on the ground and he's going to hit her with a rock. Mm-hmm. So in an interview with Christian Kessler, he recalled an accident which took place during shooting. He said, "In the end, there is a scene where I try to strike dead a girl with a stone, but the police shoot me. Unfortunately, the stunt boy messed up this scene. He lost control over the car and drove over the actress. I tried to snatch her from the car, but in vain. The story then brought her into the hospital for months. Thus, we had to use a stand-in to finish the shooting."
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it really the actress that was playing
Yeah.
Sylvia? Oh my goodness. That's probably why. Isn't this her only role?
Probably. She's like, fuck
She
this.
couldn't walk after that. Oh, it's terrible, right?
Yeah, it is. It's sad. All right, so speaking of Gordon Mitchell, he is our most well-known actor in here.
Such a face and a body.
Such a face. He has 130 acting credits. I've only seen 10, which...
I think I might be around 15 or so.
Yeah, blows my mind.
The Bronze Giant is what he was called.
He is. If you see him early on, you can see those muscles and...
Yeah, he's notorious for like a lot of the Greek god roles that he plays and the sword and sandals and spaghetti westerns too. He's in a lot of spaghetti westerns that I've seen.
But most importantly, he was in Blood Delirium, which we've covered, and you should go back and listen to that episode if you haven't, because he plays a necrophiliac, which is my favorite thing ever.
He does, yeah. There's, that might be popping up from me again.
He was also in Frankenstein 80, which Adam mentioned in his review he thought would be a good pairing with this, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
He's in Rio Bravo, Spartacus, Endgame. He's in this other movie that I just watched, that Lance, I think you should save for Junesploitation if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
White Fire, 1984.
I have seen it.
Okay, so I imagine that you have the theme song on your saved playlist somewhere.
It's my ringtone.
Okay.
No.
I figured, because it's like white fire, something, something, love in the air. I don't know. It's fucking great.
It is great. I loved it. I think I watched it last year. Fred Williamson was in it. I mean,
Fred Williamson. That's what I was going to. Robert Ginty, fine, whatever. Fred Williamson's in it. There, before the credits even roll, there's a man on fire in this, and I don't mean like, oh yeah, I can see like he's covered in like the protective oil or like the fire suit. No, this person's like gets lit on fucking fire, like, and I don't think it's on purpose.
Yeah, no, Gordon Mitchell probably has an interview with that saying like, yeah, an unfortunate tragic event happened at the end.
But that one also has some very awkward almost incest between Robert Ginty and his sister.
Yeah.
Ew.
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's on Tubi. Folks, save it for Junesploitation. It's not great, obviously you'll see by the Letterboxd rating, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I gave it like 3.5 stars.
I expect that, yeah. That makes sense.
I kind of overrate stuff, but yeah, some of my favorite roles that I've seen. I mean, Gordon Mitchell doesn't usually have big roles.
Mm-mm.
Like, I think he's first bill on, Skin Under the Claws, but he's not in it much.
No.
But Beyond the Law with Lee Van Cleef and Antonio Sabato, who that's one of my favorite spaghetti westerns. Very homoerotic, which I just love between these two characters.
Yeah.
And Mitchell, he has a very small role. Bud Spencer pops up in a small role. It's a great cast. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but Beyond the Law, it's a great movie. I watched 2 of Gordon Mitchell movies for this podcast episode that I had never seen before. I watched She, which a lot of people have seen.
Right.
1984.
Yeah.
Mitchell looks awesome. He's got the scarred face, like orange hair. He's like the leader of the Norks, the bad guys from the other side. That movie has a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then I watched The Fighting Fists of Shanghai Joe, which, again, Mitchell has a small part. This is another spaghetti western, but they kind of mixed in martial arts and stuff. About a man from China who's played by a Japanese actor. He migrates to America, and he heads to Texas, where even today he faces a lot of like racism along the way, and he protects these others that are facing the same kind of treatment, specifically these Mexican immigrants who, these white men kind of treat as cattle and stuff. Very uncomfortable watch. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's, it has a cool, it's not, the message isn't told very well and in an appealing manner, but there is a pretty good message there. But yeah, Gordon Mitchell pops up and Klaus Kinski pops up for a couple of minutes as like the final villain all of a sudden. But yeah, I recommend that one. That one I think was on Tubi. Okay. But, I mean, anything, like you said, Gordon Mitchell has hundreds and hundreds of credits. So when you see his name on it, that skeletal, creepy face, when it pops up, you're like, yes. Like, he does make every scene better.
He does. Apologies to folks. Piper decided she wanted to pipe in and start snoring. So if you hear that.
Oh, sorry, Piper. Sorry. Do I need to be more energetic in my delivery?
She tuned out as soon as, we said incest and whatever. All right. So besides Gordon Mitchell, Genevieve Audrey plays Dr. Sylvia Pieri. She's got 6 film credits, probably because she got ran over in this one.
They're probably before this, but yeah, that's interesting. I'm so shocked about that.
Ettore Ribota plays Commissioner Rinaldi. He's got 13 credits. He's the TV reporter in Last Man on Earth. He's in The Doll of Satan, 1969. And Challenge the Devil, 1963, starring Christopher Lee, and to which I gave 1 star for the googly-eyed spider, and that is all. Tino Boriani plays Dr. Johnny Danny. He's only got 1 other credit, which I watched, called Man, Pride, and Vengeance from 1967. I think you've seen this one as well. Yeah. It's got Nero and Kinski in it.
Yeah, Tina Oman from Arcana. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this one.
Yeah, I love everything. It's Luigi Bozzoni, but everything he does, everything I've seen of his is just fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. So the only other film credit, I didn't initially have this, but this was until I actually read Roberto Curti's write-up of it. There's a scene in here where Sylvia and Johnny go to visit her painter friend.
Yes.
And I initially had a note of like, does this have anything to do with the plot? And I was like, no, it's just in there for no reason. It's just a reason to show more naked women. But the guy who plays the painter is Goffredo Triforo.
In the movie. Because they call him Goffredo.
Okay, so maybe he's playing himself. But he was a self-taught Sicilian artist, and he showed his works in Venice in 1972. The scene, like even Cody says, completely pointless, does nothing for the plot at all. And so Cody suspects that this was just for the filmmakers to make some extra money, like by having this sort of pseudo-famous artist in there.
Okay, I thought my first, because I watched it once and then I did like a power watch of it the second time. And my first notes was like, it's probably my favorite scene, but completely unnecessary.
Sure, of course. No, I still love it.
But then when I watched it again, I went back and watched it a couple times because I feel like while it is unnecessary, it shows a lot of naked women, which is great. And I love his conversation. Like, these women are what inspire me to paint nature scenes. So I was like, I'm envisioning like when Bob Ross is recording his episodes, if we turn the camera around, there's all these naked women just watching him. But I almost feel like he was thrown in as a suspect because when the second woman is killed, she's stripping down and stuff and talking to the man, just who you don't know who it is at that point. They keep showing clips of paintings on the walls.
Right.
And I was like, maybe they're trying to throw him in, like maybe the painter's a suspect.
Yeah. I mean, I think anytime you throw anyone into a jolly, they become a suspect, except for the person who's too obvious.
Right. And I liked how, what's his name, Goffredo, the painter, how he was talking about, I almost feel like they were trying to pull in what Professor Helmet was doing, which is changing nature. He's like, I like to change nature, with using my imagination, and I draw inspiration from these shapes and colors, which is kind of what he was doing, because there was a lot of talk of, you can't make eternal life, there's a lot of discussions in this movie.
Yeah.
So some of it, like the second time I watched it, I was like, there's a lot to be told in this scene with the painter, the second watch.
Yeah.
But again, this is me focusing on the blue station wagon and Madhouse. Like,
but it's also like reaching for like, well, what scene can I actually see and understand?
It was a
So it's like, let me latch onto this scene because I can actually see what's happening in it. Unlike the opening scene, which is like, okay, I'm pretty sure someone's stealing a body from the grave.
Yeah, exactly. Are they killing somebody or are they digging up a grave? That first scene was frustrating. I was like, this is going to set up for a long watch if this happens.
But then the next scene happens and you're like, okay, it's a little lighter, but like throughout, it's really hard to see a lot of what's going on. Apparently, though, in Cody's write-up, he's like, there's no mystery whatsoever. Apparently, he's seen a very clean, complete copy of this because you mentioned like Mitchell's face. It's very distinct, and so even with like that type of mask over it, that it's him. And so if you see the beginning and you see that masked face,
right
you're like,
away.
You're like, oh, okay. So and then you see Gordon Mitchell, you're like, okay, so he's the killer. I guess I'll watch the rest of this movie now.
I mean, and like I said, maybe the painter's a suspect. Obviously Professor Danny and maybe even the commissioner, like all these suspects, but right away, as soon as it starts, I'm like, it's going to be Gordon Mitchell.
Sure, of course,
it's gotta be.
And he dies, but like no one sees him die and body disappears. So you're like, okay, like he's faked his own death. The letterbox synopsis doesn't help because it's talking about someone with identical DNA, and that's not it at all.
No. Maybe somebody wrote that, somebody confused wrote that, but maybe they're trying to pull in, it just doesn't make sense. I was thinking maybe the wife. When you read it, because I never read the synopsis on Letterboxd, so that
you're better for
surprise. It. Even my Giallo January pick, I'm gonna tell people don't read the synopsis on Letterboxd.
Okay, I won't. But it's hard because this is clearly a butchered copy with missing scenes. You can tell that just from watching it. And I mentioned the first time when I told people I picked this, and it's going to bother some people because it's such a terrible copy, but also because Sylvia and Gianni are boring as hell and we're stuck with them for most of this movie, going on dates and just having the most unromantic romance ever.
Yeah, most awkward conversations where they're talking about love on the beach and she's like, okay, let's change the subject. Let's not talk seriously. It's very awkward. I didn't care for either of those characters much at all.
Me neither.
One of my favorite was the asshole commissioner.
Yes.
Rinaldi, which seems to be a common name for a police officer in Italian films. But I love how angry he gets when the coroner first explains to him that there's decomposed flesh under the nails. He's like, don't be absurd. Don't mention this again. Get out of here. Another inspector was telling him, he was giving him an autopsy report about like how about the victim, her life, how she was killed. And he's like, "Are you finished? This sounds like a sermon." Like, I just love how he was great. He was my favorite. He gave me Cameron Mitchell vibes at first.
Yeah.
And then once I thought that, I was like, I really wish this was Cameron Mitchell.
Oh my God.
I should be watching a Cameron Mitchell movie.
Oh.
But no, the characters don't have a whole lot of charisma.
No, I mean, Gordon Mitchell, when he's on screen, even at the beginning, like, you know, it starts off fairly promising. You've got a mysterious man stealing a body in a graveyard, even though you can barely see it. The puppet show during the credits is cool. Gordon Mitchell over the dead body. He's talking about having some sort of organ bank. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate your dream that you got going on here.
I do like that. I mean, and even the music, right off the bat, the music was especially captivating to me because it sounds like an old kind of Herschel Gordon Lewis movie where it's just so choppy. It changes from like fast jazz to this weird, like I love when this is early 70s movies use like where composers are clearly experimenting. Like it sounds like water bubbling or something over a tense tone or a siren going off. But I loved the music in this. It really sucked me in more so than the performances.
Yeah. So let me back up. Let me get to the missing scenes.
Oh yeah.
So that, you know, that hopefully that can clear up some stuff for further on. So we're missing some exposition, obviously, from Helmet. We're missing him explaining that he wants a reanimated corpse to copulate with a living one based on Nazi experiments. Like
that's when you read that in the summary, I was like, wait, what? Okay.
Yeah, there's a scene at the end where he's kidnapped Sylvia. She's chained up. Apparently there's also like tons of other naked women, so these probably got cut by the censor, maybe. Bunch of other women chained up in the dungeon. I was like, where's that scene?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So we're missing the actual explanation and the tie-in to like, yes, these experiments are based on previous Nazi experiments. He did briefly talk about baboon brain transplants, and all in my head, I was just like, oh my God, I hope the reveal is that he did a brain transplant on himself with the baboon. And he's like, I have the Nazi test to prove that this works. I needed it to lean so far into that angle. Like, I just needed it in my life, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. I mean, one scene that has to be missing, because this had me literally laughing out loud, was when they're sitting there watching his experiments. He says, like, I always record my experiments, and he's there with the captured Sylvia.
Yes.
And it goes back to like some, police procedural stuff. And then all of a sudden Sylvia's just running away. And that was like, well, okay, she escaped. Okay. Yeah. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. But that has to be missing. Yeah.
So right before that, we have her laying on a table, only in her underwear and an open shirt. And Gordon Mitchell has some like electric thing that he's waving around her head.
Right.
So there's this whole experiment, the reanimating corpses or whatever. Apparently all of this is done with a serum, which we never see used.
It's kind of mentioned by the coroner where they said there's some sort of LSD maybe
something in there
in the body.
Right. But Mitchell never, there's no explanation on how any of this is doing. Somehow and we do see the electrical thing, but when she's on the table, apparently there's a scene, I'm assuming it's before he gets her up off the table because it says she's laying on it, of her being groped by a bunch of reanimated corpses all around her. Oh, man. What the fuck is that scene?
Yeah. I'm going to be completely gross dude and say like all my favorite scenes are, the naked girls and the full frontal girls that are getting murdered and they're holding their guts. There's some good scenes in there that would be like great images and memorable. And it sounds like they cut out
all the good shit. Yeah. We saw like the first sex worker got killed and she had like a cut in her stomach and was holding some innards and that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, more of that, please.
Yeah. Or maybe they show some of there's a lot of also, uncovering bodies that you don't see. Decomposed flesh with eyes that look alive. Maybe there's a shot of that.
We never got a shot of the chopped up body in the suitcases. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's such a great movie on the cutting room floor of this film. He didn't specifically mention her escaping, but I'm sure that there is a scene missing of that. There's a quote that he said that Cody pulled directly from the film, which I don't remember anyone or Helmet ever saying. He says, I want to reach the breeding between two clinically dead beings so that even if one day a nuclear explosion should destroy all of humanity, we could still store some dead specimens capable of reproducing. So not only does he want a reanimated corpse to copulate with a living person, but he wants 2 zombies to fuck as well and be able to reproduce.
Yeah, I don't remember that in the
Yeah, I don't think that was in there.
either.
I think that was cut as well. So we have a lot of important exposition is cut, as well as some of the stuff that we love about these movies, like the gratuitous nudity and the gore and things like that have been cut from this film. So, if any movie was going to make it on my next Blu-ray wish list, it's probably going to be this, to be good God, get this restored.
Well, I mean, from right off the bat, I was like, this thing is so incredibly dark. Usually I can overlook any type of rips and stuff, but when it becomes a little chaotic and, obviously this is chopped up, butchered from an editing perspective, it doesn't help in that regard when it's so dark and you can't see a lot of the scenes. Yeah. So I would love to see a restoration of this too.
Yeah, I think this has now become the crown champion of Unsung Horror's worst copies that we've watched for an episode. Previously used to be Blood Delirium with the Polish title, subtitle?
Yeah, or Russian. Right,
Russian subtitles, maybe? I don't know.
Yes, that was fun, though. But it wasn't that bad.
No, that one was not bad. It was just like these ridiculous subtitles. You had to look past those. But this is a terrible
It was better than
copy.
A Portrait in Crystal when I watched that with the title splashed across the cover.
That's... I forgot about that.
I'm like, I can do this.
And you have like fever dreams for the next month.
More frustrated with Skin Under the Claws. Yeah, everywhere I look, I see A Portrait in Crystal. I know we talked about Sylvia and Professor Danny, their boring conversations, but there was one conversation between them that I thought was a fantastic analogy for eternal life. Mm-hmm. It was Sylvia, and she was, Dr. Did I call him Dr. Danny?
That's his name, yeah. Johnny Danny, yeah.
Johnny Danny, yeah. Dr. Danny, he... he's very passionate about taking up Professor Helmet's work and stuff and creating this eternal life. And she says, her analogy was when we're on a crowded train, we don't want more people to get on. We want more people to get off. And then she starts talking about if man were to live, for eternity, it would be like creating a world of the living dead. I was like, I really like that train analogy where it's like it becomes crowded. And if people lived forever, it would be like a crowded train.
Yeah. I don't want to live together. Yeah. I think that's like Santini's attempt at like adding some kind of philosophical element to this, because there is sort of like a sci-fi element to this. There's a very like a Frankenstein element to this, even though it is technically a horror film or a thriller, because there's not that much, horror really in it. Some of my favorite things, though, are just the wait, what moments. So the black woman dancing at the nightclub to a totally different song. Like, you could even tell the band behind her is playing something much faster than what she's and she's clearly not dancing to the music that's being played that we're listening to.
Yeah, it was called an American club, I think is what it said, which was funny.
At the very end, there's like the 3 daughters who are like running around.
Yes.
And they're adults too. And they're like, let's play hide and go seek. And like they're sitting on the ground and there's this like gratuitous crotch zoom.
I do have that noted. I grossly put A+ right next to it. But yeah, they're these older women and they're having a picnic reading and then they just start fighting and their panties are being shown.
Yeah.
That scene is like, we need more of that. That's why it's the last 8 minutes really where it's just like
off the rails.
Let's just fucking go for it. One of my other favorite scenes that really doesn't make a lot of sense too, and it's just so minor, is when it's Sylvia and Danny and all the doctors and Professor Helmet. They're all, I think Danny's doing the surgery, removing organs. And he is the sweatiest surgeon ever because Sylvia's like, it's just close up of their eyes looking at each other and she's dabbing his head like every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is, it's a tense scene for no reason.
Yeah.
And then the drunk porter, when he first comes to the police station and he's being asked, like, what did the man with the suitcases look like? And he's like, yeah, he's not fat, not thin, not tall, not short. And he looks at the commissioner. He's like, well, he looked like you. He looked like you.
He does look like him, actually.
Well, that's one thing, too, that was very murky. And this had nothing to do with the lighting or the dark rip. I couldn't tell the difference from a lot of characters. They're so boring. There was no, obviously Gordon Mitchell stands out, but there was no specific characteristics of these characters. I'm like, okay, is that Danny that has the suitcase? Is that, Professor Johnny or... And the women, they all kind of bled together for me. It just became way too murky for me.
Yeah, I had to like think about I had to pause it a few times and be like, okay, wait, that's this person, and keep it straight, because no one really stands out. I think the original story, before half of it ended up being cut, they're relying on how out there and weird the story is and not taking the time to build characters that we gave a
and there's
shit about.
visuals going on, it sounds like, that people can appreciate. That
exactly. It's like, let's just throw in a bunch of nudity, have this weird, Frankenstein, Nazi fucking corpse fucking plot, and not worry about having any interesting characters. Because, I was like, I don't know. I mean, I know Gordon Mitchell did it, but so why do I have to watch these two go on another date and talk and say, oh, I love you? I'm like, haven't you been on one fucking date?
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing too. And it sounds like it was due to the chopped up editing, but I couldn't pinpoint the timelines. Did days pass? Is this like an hour later? It was
Unclear.
very tough to understand.
I think it has to have been a lot longer, because if he's got supposedly a horde of reanimated corpses, he has been having to steal organs and do all these things for some time. And he's got some other women chained up in the dungeon that we don't get to see. I mean, I'm assuming that reanimated corpses that are fondling Sylvia are also fucking the women who are chained up in the dungeon, which is another scene that we probably are missing.
Yeah, now that I'm learning all this stuff, I feel like my rating's unfair, because this...
No, because you're rating what you saw.
It's true, but it's obviously an incomplete... I still didn't know, even when I walked into this room, where did the decomposed flesh come from these nails? I didn't know there was a reanimated army out there. I thought maybe Professor Helmet had been dead the whole time. And it was very confusing to me. Yeah, but now it makes sense.
Yeah, because there was a line in there too where it was like, I think it was the coroner that said she was hugged by a corpse in advanced state of decomposition. And I was like, what?
Yeah. And then the police commissioner's just like, shut up with that. Get out of here. That doesn't make sense. I don't want dead corpses.
So your rating is perfectly fair, because that's what you saw. Honestly, last night after John and after I rewatched it, John watched it, he was like, so you got it figured out? And I was like, no, Lance and I will figure it out tomorrow. And then I read Cody's book and I was like, okay, I feel so much better now.
Yeah, I'd still, without that book, I would have no idea and still wouldn't, any explanation that you would have given me, I wouldn't know where the decomposed flesh came from.
Yeah.
Because that's where I kept where is it? Who is it? Yeah. Is it the wife? Has she been dead the whole time? Is it Sylvia? It was just confusing.
Yeah, I know.
Which I enjoyed. I enjoyed the internal, mind fuck of a battle I had going on, and kept me up at night. Thank you so much, Santino. It's just... but I think this one does go to the top of a Blu-ray wish list.
Yep. I'm going to just go with what Dakota said and say stick it in a Forgotten Gialli set, because this would... Restored complete would be the highlight of that box set.
100%.
Yeah. Let's go to double features then. Lance.
Mine was, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
I'm going with another Gordon Mitchell film. A movie that has a crazy man who wants a doppelganger to pretty much become his wife, his late wife. This broken-hearted creep who wants, his old lover back. We covered this film, Blood Delirium, from 1988, directed by Sergio Bergonzelli. Still has under 1,000 views on Letterboxd. Still.
Folks.
Last I checked.
Hyper. Jesus. Sorry.
Gordon Mitchell's digging up dead bodies in this, but he's going a little further, and he's fucking them.
Yeah.
Which I think was the reason you probably...
I mean, there is, if you think about it, there's technically necrophilia in this film, in the uncut film.
Right. And the film that you... haven't watched. So
that we
watch
will
this
watch
and get it.
Someday, yes.
Get that necrophilia from this. Yeah, for those who haven't seen it, he's digging up dead bodies for his master, who's an artist. There's a painter.
Yeah.
He's a painter. And he wants to use the blood for paint. Another similarity for Skin Under the Claws is, I already mentioned, this painter obsesses over his dead wife, and there's a woman that enters the picture.
Yeah.
Hinted very shortly at the very end, the last minute of Skin Under the
Very
Cloth.
passing, yeah.
Yeah, the commissioner explains it. But yeah, that kind of helped with my kind of strictly personal taste reasons. Yeah, that's what I was mainly going for, the focusing in on the dead wife for a double feature. Because like you said, there's a lot of Frankenstein references.
Right.
I even thought of Jack Palance, Dan Curtis's Dracula.
Okay.
Where it's basically Dracula lamenting his, dead lover and really focuses in on that. But I think Blood Delirium with the Gordon Mitchell, I mean, he's definitely the draw here. He's that necro-fucking butler. I forgot his name. Herman? I think it was Herman.
Yeah, it was Herman.
And there's a 4K release of this. So you could watch this barely viewable Skin Under the Claws Unsung Horrors loaded up YouTube video and then pop in the 4K and get a close-up of Gordon Mitchell's amazing features.
There you go.
What about you?
So I also did a Gordon Mitchell film, but I went more the Frankenstein route with it. And this is another film that I'm not recommending it as a double feature because it's good, because it's not, but it fits well as a double feature with this film. And that's Frankenstein's Castle of Freaks from 1974. It's directed by Dick Randell. He's better known as the producer of Pieces and a bunch of other films. Since there's that pseudo-Frankenstein element in Skin Under the Claws, I thought this could work. It's a test of patience. Gordon Mitchell stars in it as Igor. He's just this great henchman in it. The letterbox synopsis of it. Oh, it's interesting too because they call him Count Frankenstein, not Baron Frankenstein, which is weird. I'm like,
oh, interesting.
I'm like, it's not Dracula, but anyway. So Frankenstein recruits an evil dwarf, a Neanderthal man, and others to help him put a brain in the body of a brute. And it's like the Frankenstein at the end is like, it's pretty bad.
Is it? Is it like Lady Frankenstein bad?
It's not. Yeah, it's bad.
I wanted to watch this Frankenstein's Castle of Freaks before the episode.
It's on Tubi. Yeah, it's fun. All right, Lance. Next Giallo.
Okay, I'm staying in Italy with my pick.
Okay.
Which seems to make sense,
It
right?
should.
But I'm jumping ahead a full decade. Let's go to 1985 for a later Giallo. Yeah?
Oof.
Later Giallo. You ready
Okay.
for this?
All right.
This one was directed by Alberto Di Martino.
Oh, okay.
Who, he's been popping up in a lot of watches I've noticed on Letterboxd because it is Giallo January for a lot of people, not even people who listen to our podcast. But I'm picking Formula for a Murder.
Okay, all right, forgiven. Thank you.
Because it stars David Warbeck, who we love from Fulci's The Beyond, his Black Cat adaptation. But Warbeck plays an athletic trainer who's really pushing for his girlfriend to marry him. She's extremely wealthy. She's been handicapped, confined to a wheelchair since a young age after a traumatic event where a priest attempted to rape her. I already mentioned this earlier, but I will say the letterbox synopsis gives a lot away.
I'm not going to read it. I'm looking at it, but I'm not reading it. I'm just looking
To be fair to whoever wrote that and Letterboxd for posting it, a lot of the secrets in the movie are revealed fairly early on. Okay. So it's not going to ruin your day if you do read it, but there are some surprises in that synopsis that should be treated as surprises on screen. So I would hold off from reading the synopsis if you haven't already.
Okay.
But Warbeck's character ends up marrying his wealthy girlfriend and murders start occurring due to the classic Giallo trope of that murder-inducing fortune from a wealthy lover or family member. It has very slow moments, as a lot of Giallo is known to have, but
love to see it.
It will test some people's patience. The soundtrack, though, is amazing. And it's very, like I said, this is 1985, so it's a strange little, you don't get a whole lot of crazy 80s synth in Giallo, but you will hear.
Ooh, okay.
We'll definitely talk about the music.
Okay.
It's on YouTube at the moment. I think I saw a few options, but the one I saw had really good quality, decent subtitles, but it was under La Casa Maledetta.
Okay.
7 Hyden Park. We'll add the link to show notes. But it currently has 820 views on Letterboxd.
This has been on my watch list for a very long time, so thank you.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna get a bunch of David Warbeck movies in too because I just love his overacting.
Yeah. You know what's odd is neither of our picks have our girl in it, and they're Italian films. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's what anymore.
I mean,
is she not going to be in my list this year?
Everybody
She's in my all-time. She's the only female in my, like, if I looked at my letterbox stats all time, she's the only female.
Well, I didn't mention this. That movie I watched with Gordon Mitchell, Fighting Fist of Shanghai Joe.
Uh-huh.
Carla Mancini's in it.
Did you see her?
She speaks.
Oh my God.
She has a name in it. Her name's Conchita, I believe it was. And she plays the friend of the main girl. And she speaks.
Holy shit.
She like serves drinks and she's like, somebody's here to see you or something. Obviously it's dubbed, but...
Sure. But she opens her mouth.
Yeah, I think I gave it an extra half star because of that. I was like, Carla Mancini, this... First off, it doesn't look anything like her. It's not really her. Just kidding.
Wait. Oh, God damn it.
No, it is. It's Carla Mancini. She's in it as Conchita, I think was her name, and she has a speaking role.
Holy shit.
And she has a name.
Wow.
I mean, I was
not just like nurse or like nun number 2.
yeah, exactly. Or just nothing. Like,
nothing. Yeah, nothing.
Even on IMDb, she has so many nothing roles.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting that we don't have Carla Mancini in our movies.
Well, I'm sure there'll be other movies this year that maybe she'll pop up in.
I mean, she's going to pop up in a lot of the movies I'm going to watch for the episode. I think and obviously she did for this episode.
Yeah.
We love it.
All right. If you're not already, you can follow this podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Unsung Horrors. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Hex Massacre.
You can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd at Schibi.
We will have links in show notes to where you can watch Skin Under the Claws. Obviously, well, hopefully you watched it already if you made it to this point. Where you can watch our next episode on YouTube. We'll have a link to that. We'll also have a link to where you can vote for the Shelf Shock Rewind Awards.
Vote for Erica.
Stop it. You can pre-order Run and Kill from Error 4444, Spider Labyrinth from Severin, Villages of the Damned, Magic Crystal, Horrible, Dr. Hitchcock, and Black Cat 1 and 2 from Vinegar Syndrome. And I cannot wait till we can announce more stuff from both of us. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll see you next episode for more Giallo January. Bye.
Bye.